The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has marked the end of Britain's 20-year presence in Afghanistan by assuring the families of soldiers killed there that their suffering was not in vain. The US State Department warns its remaining citizens to leave the area around Kabul airport immediately due to a specific credible threat of militant attack. Taliban troops have now sealed off all roads to the airport. US weather forecasters have warned that the storm approaching Louisiana could be more powerful than Hurricane Katrina, which devastated New Orleans 16 years ago. Ida is expected to make landfall in the next few hours. And Italian Coast Guard vessels have rescued 539 migrants from a fishing boat drifting off the island of Lampedusa. The rescue on Saturday delivered one of the largest number of migrants to the Italian island in a single day.
Now to the other major story we're following this morning, the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. President Biden and the First Lady arriving at Dover Air Force Base just a short time ago as the bodies of the 13 service members killed in Kabul arrive home. This comes following a new warning about a security threat. ABC's Julia McFarlane is covering the story for us from London. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning, Eva. That's right. We are entering the last 2 days before that withdrawal deadline, but the risk is not letting up. As you say, the president warning there could be another attack on the airport, even as the final evacuations take place. Overnight, a new alert issued to Americans around Kabul airport, citing a specific credible threat to security. The embassy warning US citizens should avoid traveling to the airport and avoid all airport gates at this time. President Biden issuing an urgent warning that another terrorist attack remains highly likely, and the Pentagon echoing that danger. As the final withdrawal of US troops is underway, the circumstances on the ground as dire as ever.
The threats are still very real. They're very dynamic, and we are monitoring them literally in real time.
This comes after the US carried out a drone strike just over 24 hours ago. An unmanned drone in Afghanistan's Nahanga province killing 2 members of the terror group ISIS-K. A planner and a facilitator, and injuring another. No civilian casualties have been reported.
The fact that 2 of these individuals are no longer walking on the face of the earth, that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the people of Afghanistan. It's a good thing for our troops and our forces at that airfield.
The US airstrike in retaliation for Thursday's suicide bombing that took the lives of 170 Afghan civilians and 13 US service members. President Biden vowing to avenge them earlier this week.
We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
The president now announcing that strike would not be the last. The Pentagon releasing the names of the 13 service members killed in the bombing, 11 Marines, a Navy hospital corpsman, and an Army soldier. The president this morning traveling to Delaware's Dover Air Force Base to honor those 13 US service members as their bodies arrive home to the United States. Lance Corporal David Lee Espinoza of Texas, enlisting in the Marines straight from high school.
As a mother, it's hard, but he did serve. He did do what he wanted, but it's hard.
20-year-old Marine Riley McCollum, just 3 weeks away from becoming a new father.
He loved his family. He loved his wife. He was a wrestler. He knew he was going to be a Marine his whole life.
Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoui, his heartbroken mother writing, "This is my hero. I will never get to hug him again." And Marine Sergeant Nicole G. of California, posting this picture from Kabul just days ago, comforting an Afghan baby, writing, "I love my job." And guys, look, if the conflict and the threat of COVID wasn't enough, millions of Afghans are now also facing dire food insecurity. The United Nations World Food Programme warning that vital food stocks supporting half the population could start running out from September. Janae.
Wow, Julia, thank you so much for those updates.
We begin in Afghanistan. Reuters and other media are reporting an explosion near an airport in the Afghan capital Kabul on Sunday afternoon local time. This footage from the scene shows black smoke billowing into the sky. So far, there are few details, such as the extent of the damage and whether there are any injuries. Meanwhile, the U.S. Central Command said on Sunday that airstrikes using drones have been carried out in Kabul to remove potential threats posed by regional organizations of the Islamic State militant group. It's not known whether the airstrikes caused any civilian casualties. It's also not known if there's a connection between the sound of that explosion near the airport and the latest U.S. military operation. A massive suicide bombing at the same airport on Thursday killed more than 100 people, including 13 U.S. soldiers. In retaliation, U.S. forces carried out a drone attack on the Islamic State group's regional organization. U.S. officials say the operation killed 2 senior officials in eastern Afghanistan who were planning terrorist attacks. U.S. President Joe Biden on Saturday stressed his administration's determination to bring the situation under control. He vowed the retaliation isn't over. A Taliban spokesperson told NHK the group has taken control of parts of Kabul's international airport that were vacated by the U.S. military. Zabihullah Mujahid made the comment on Sunday, 2 days ahead of the August 31st deadline for the ongoing U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. Mujahid said the Taliban are optimistic about the complete pullout of foreign forces from the airport. He added that the group will put the entire airport under its control in the near future. The Taliban are calling for the withdrawal of not only U.S. forces, but also staff from NATO member countries who have been managing air traffic control, security, and other duties at the airport. However, the Taliban are believed to be short of trained personnel who can run the airport, prompting some in the U.S. government to question whether the group can operate flights as usual from next month. The Taliban have been seeking cooperation from Turkey, which has been involved in managing military operations at the airport. Attention is focused on whether the Taliban can secure the necessary assistance it needs to keep the airport operating, to allow airlifts of relief supplies to Afghanistan from the United Nations and other entities. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says Britain has completed its mission to evacuate its citizens and local allies from Afghanistan.
All remaining soldiers, diplomats and civil servants have now left. It's the culmination of a mission unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes. UK troops and officials have worked round the clock to a remorseless deadline in harrowing conditions.
Johnson said Britain has airlifted more than 15,000 people in less than 2 weeks. Johnson also had a message for the Taliban. He said, if the new regime in Kabul wants diplomatic recognition or to unlock the billions that are currently frozen, they will have to ensure safe passage for those who wish to leave the country. People around the world have taken to the streets to call for support for Afghan women and girls. This is amid concern about the worsening security situation in the country. About 1,000 demonstrators gathered in front of the White House in Washington to appeal for help for the women of Afghanistan.
We demand the international community to stand together and protect Afghan women.
Najila Jamshidi worked for a UN body promoting women's rights in Afghanistan before she came to the U.S. to study.
It was absolutely like a jail for women during the previous Taliban regime. For 20 years, we have taught them about democratic values. You can have dream and you can dream big.
But the Taliban are now back in power. Afghan women have been telling Jamshidi about their fears. She says some of them would rather die than live under Taliban rule.
We don't want them to go back to that situation which they have experienced in 20 years ago.
Jamshidi says she will continue to campaign on behalf of the women of Afghanistan. Now to Sunday's Paralympic action. A Japanese swimmer has won the men's 100-meter breaststroke, breaking his own world record. Yamaguchi Naohide, who has intellectual disabilities, has been swimming since he was a child. The 20-year-old takes advantage of his 1.9-meter height and 30-centimeter feet. In wheelchair rugby, Japan has won a bronze medal for the second games in a row by defeating top-ranked Australia. Ace Ikezaki Daisuke scored 23 tries to lead the way to a 60-52 victory. Britain claimed its first gold medal in the sport by beating the United States. Britain won a hard-fought game, 54-49. In football, 5-a-side, Japan beat France 4-0 in its first match. Each team in the sport has 4 outfield players with visual impairments and a goalkeeper who can be fully or partially sighted. 8 teams are participating. Japan, as host nation, was awarded a slot in the sport for the first time. Japanese athlete Tani Mami said she had regrets about coming in 10th in the triathlon, but she was so happy to participate. Tani made a speech when Tokyo had just won its bid to host the Games in 2013 about how sports encouraged her after she lost a leg and her hometown was hit by the earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Staying with the Paralympics, track and field athletes from around Asia had a remarkable day on Sunday. Zhou Xia from China broke her own world record in the women's 200 meters in the category for athletes with a coordination impairment. Zhou finished the final in 27.17 seconds. That was faster than her time at the Rio Games 4 years ago. She also set a world record on Friday in the 100-meter race ahead of the previous record holder, Australia's Isis Holt. Thailand's Pongsakorn Peo defended his title in the men's 400-meter wheelchair race. He broke a Paralympic record in the preliminary round and set a world record of 46.61 seconds in the final. That gave Thailand its first Paralympic gold in Tokyo.